professor of German and a professor of information.
Yes.
Yeah, and she's an entrepreneur. So she has her own business. So part of her time she dedicates to her for-profit activities. She has an IT firm. Yeah.
Yes.
And part of her time she dedicates to non-profit activities such as this one. And she will tell you more about it. I find quite a utopian idea, but it seems that it's coming true.
Yes.
Yeah, in some countries, and she'll tell you all about it. So enjoy. And maybe if you have questions, at the end, Višnje will answer your questions.
Thank you, Ilka, for this lovely introduction. So my name is Višnje Željeznjak. I work as a web architect and digital marketing specialist at a web consultancy here in Croatia. I've been an entrepreneur for 11 years. I'm very glad to be here today to talk about my non-profit activity, which is basic income. And when people ask me about what basic income is, I always like to start with a story that inspires me a great deal. And this is the story of Nell. This lady's story begins in 1956 in the United States. Nell was working as a clerk in an airline industry, and as her non-profit activity, she liked to write. She wrote a little short story here, a little short story there, but Nell actually never published anything until something miraculous happened. On a Christmas Eve in 1956, a friend of hers, who was also a writer, gave her a very generous gift. She received a year's worth of pay with a note. Nell, here is money for a year. Please quit your job, sit down and write that story that you want to write. So Nell did exactly that. And after 2 years, she found an agent, a literary agent, and she published a story. Her story is a story that you all probably heard of. This is the story that won a Pulitzer Prize, has been sold in 30 million copies in the next few years after publishing, and has been named as the best novel of the 20th century. This novel is To Kill a Mockingbird, and she is Nell Harper Lee. You've probably seen the movie if you haven't read the book. So, what's that got to do with basic income? What she actually received from her friend is money that she needed to quit her job and to concentrate on something that she was actually very good in. But nobody actually knew that before she sat down and published the story. So not only that money, so it's a year's worth of pay. Imagine if somebody gave you money to live off for a year. What her work gave to the world is not only a book. So it's not only a book, but it's a book that actually helped change the minds of the 20th century and helped combat one of the greatest injustices of the 20th century, which was racism. So basic income is the sum that people receive from the government unconditionally, whether they work or not, whether they're poor or rich, young or old, so they could explore their potential. I'm going to show you a movie that introduces basic income the best. Just a second.
Today, austerity seems to be the only answer given to remedy the economic crisis in Europe. Yet people are getting poorer and poorer. Automation in manufacturing and wealth accumulation by financial institutions are changing our approach to work. More and more is produced with fewer and fewer people. Unemployment rates have skyrocketed and pay work is no longer right for everyone. The good news is that never before in history have human societies generated so much wealth. But while this wealth is produced by the work of all, past and present, this wealth is unevenly distributed among citizens. We, as European citizens, propose an alternative. It's not a new idea, but now is the time to put it into action. It's called Unconditional Basic Income. Have you heard of it? Not yet. Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states, everyone has the right to a standard of living at adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness. There it is. Basic income should be universal, individual, unconditional, and high enough to ensure a dignified existence and participation in society. This new fundamental right for humanity not only would eradicate misery, it is also a way to develop non-market orientated work, such as artists, parents, and volunteers. But it's also an economic measure. A basic income for all means supporting local business. Therefore, it would enable us to fully exercise our citizenship. How do we finance it? Easy. We have several proposals: financial and high-income taxation, a consumption tax on luxury goods and polluting products, and mainly self-financing by simplification of a very long list of current social transfers and associated public services which have become obsolete. What we propose would be much simpler, equal, and transparent. Everyone gets a basic income without even asking for it. But then, of course, it's up to you to work if you want more money. We as European citizens have now launched an official petition called the European Citizen Initiative to make the European authorities examine our manifesto. So, what's the deal? First of all, we have to surpass a minimum threshold of 7 countries minimum. 15 countries have already joined the campaign and are getting ready to collect signatures. Hopefully, others will join up soon. The European Commission must consider our proposals when we reach the 1 million signatures required. If accepted, studies of the different models and amounts of basic income will begin. We must mobilize by organizing events, creating little groups, and creating a buzz by telling your friends and everyone around you that a new idea is growing in Europe. Thank you for visiting basicincome2013.eu and signing our petition.
So that's short about basic income, and I'm going to just a second. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to repeat the most important parts about basic income. So I've told you it's a sum that you, as a citizen of European Union and Croatia, receive from the government. It is unconditional, which means that there are no government structures to control which citizens receive that money and which don't. This is very important characteristic because as soon as you remove all conditions, as soon as you remove all these huge governmental organizations that are controlling the money, there's more amount of money to actually give out. At the moment, there are many structures who are controlling the money which the government collects from the taxes, and it costs a lot of money to run these organizations, those offices throughout the Croatia. So unconditionality is actually cheaper and more efficient and actually simpler. Simpler solutions often prove to be the best ones. When we say this income is basic, it means that it only finances your basic needs, such as rent, utilities, food, clothes, medical expenses, basic education. It's high enough so that citizens can live with this income, so that they don't have to, so they're not threatened by poverty. This is very important also. And when we say it's income, this word actually symbolizes that it's personal. Money is being received by a person, not by a family, by organization. The government does not pay out money to your landlord or your grocery company. No, it pays money to you personally. This characteristic is important because this way we remove all problems where stronger members of family or society exert pressure on weaker members and so on. So men cannot oppress women, younger cannot oppress the elders, etc. Let's discuss why basic income is needed and why it's needed now. For example, poverty still exists. This is the best example why basic income needs to be implemented as soon as possible. So I always like to say that we should look at the date on the calendar. If you look at there, what do you see? You see that it's 21st century. And with all this abundance we have, technological progress we have achieved throughout the last century and throughout all our history, we still have people who cannot sustain themselves and who are actually not guilty, so to say, for their for the situation they have they have found themselves in. Basic income removes poverty, it eradicates it, because if you give all citizens a basic amount of money to live, you are not threatened by loss of job, by any market conditions that are actually steering people into various directions which they don't want to be in. So poverty is #1 problem that is actually can be fought with basic income. People sometimes say that poverty is too big of a problem to deal, that we're always going to be, that there is always going to be a part of people who are going to be poor. I would say that doesn't have to be this way. We can fight poverty. Second biggest problem is the rising social inequality. The social system that we have created has been working for some time. It's been working, let's say, well. So we have managed to produce all these goods that we have, all this technology. But I believe, and sympathizers of basic income, we believe that capitalism in its present form, as we have it today, is coming to an end. So the situation that the society is in today is that there's a growing gap between wealth distribution. A great amount of wealth is being accumulated at the top, where the rich people are, who are controlling the means of production, who own companies, own factories. And this wouldn't be a problem if the lowest part of the society was not actually threatened by poverty. So what basic income can and must do is close this gap between the rich and the poor in a way that nobody is threatened. So with basic income, people who want to be rich, who can be rich, who can create richness for themselves, are welcome to do so. But the poor people are not the ones to pay for their richness. Why we need basic income? Because working conditions in the 21st century are actually terrible. 3 months ago, there was a big strike in the United States that was organized by fast food workers. So people who work in McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, they all got together. And it was the second time in history, I believe, that fast food workers got together and created a strike. So strike is something that is normal in all other industries, but it has never happened actually with McDonald's workers. Why is that? Isn't this a little bit odd that those people never strike? Well, it is odd because working at McDonald's was never supposed to be a job for adults. And in the United States and throughout the world, more and more adult people with college diplomas, educated people are actually have to work in fast food industry because these are the only jobs that are left today. Not the only jobs, but the gaps are also closing for people who want to work and who have the degrees to work some other job, but there are no jobs for them. So what happened with this strike? What actually flipped the switch, so to say? McDonald's collected around $6 billion of pure profit last year, and their workers demanded their minimum wage to be increased from $7.25 to $15, so to say. And McDonald's told them to get a second job. And people completely flipped and organized this strike. So, with basic income, what happens if people who are employees today get basic income? What happens with the balance between employers and employees? All the power is being transferred into the hands of employees. Imagine, if you had to negotiate for work with an employer, if you had basic income, if you knew that a certain amount of money is being always transferred to you every month, you have better negotiating positions. So, and employers also know that they cannot treat their employees badly. They cannot tell their employees to get a second job if they know that their employees can always turn their backs on them, go home, find a better job. So this is the role of basic income in today's working conditions. Also, an impending doom that is going to happen very soon is so-called technological unemployment. Actually, the robots are coming and they're going to take all our jobs. Automation, robotization. People won't have jobs in the near future to work in. And I like to say that finally this is happening. This is the job of technology to free people from hard work, from meaningless work. And we should not fear something that cannot be stopped. So technological unemployment is best illustrated on a photo. I don't know if the people in the back can see well, but this is Tesla Motors factory. You can see all the red things are robots, and there are Tesla cars in the middle, and there are like 2 or 3 people in the image, and they're way back. So in modern factories, you don't need as many people as you used to need 20 years ago. For example, let me tell you an example of textile factories. In 1980s, you had to have around 2,000 people employed in a modern textile factory then. Today, you only need 140 workers. So, where did all the other people go? Or did they all become entrepreneurs, like politics suggests that they should do when they lose their jobs? Did they find a better job in their 40s, in their 50s? If you have parents who lost their jobs in their 40s and 50s, maybe you know how hard it is in Croatia and in European Union to find any kind of job, not only a better job than a textile factory. So basic income is an answer to technological unemployment. We need to find a solution as a society for all the people that are not going to be able to find a job. And basic income will create a safety net for them to land on. Like a cat with 9 lives. You can always land on your 2 feet if you can't find a job. And you won't be demonized. You won't be called stupid or a lazy bum just because you cannot find a job in the society where there isn't enough jobs for everybody. And something that is most needed, and you will probably, this will be known to you, we need more innovation. The challenges of the future that we're going to face soon and we are facing today need us to think creatively, to think differently. We need new people, young people with fresh thinking, because we cannot solve the problems of the future with the same thinking we used to create those problems. Not all people are going to be successful entrepreneurs like Mr. Richard Branson that maybe you recognize from this image. Not everybody will be a billionaire, okay? But if you have basic income, you have the luxury to fail and fail again. Entrepreneurship is very hard. I can tell you that from my own experience. You never stop. You never reach the safety net. I've seen an interview with Mr. Branson a month ago. He was talking to Mr. Elon Musk from Tesla Motors. And I was amazed at one thing they said. They say they always fight to survive. Imagine a guy with billions of pounds, British pounds. Imagine him saying that he's always fighting to survive. So with basic income, this fight would be, let's say, more bearable. You can start a company. Maybe you can fail from the first time. Maybe you fail. Maybe you succeed from the 3rd try. But we all want the society to have that chance, because in today's society, it's too risky to quit your job, like Nell did and wrote the best novel of the century, and just go chase your dreams. That's very scary to some people, and I don't blame anybody. Okay, I'm going to tell you, just repeat from the video, how to finance basic income. I'm going to be as short as possible. The video suggested that we should reform all social security systems, such as pension funds, disabilities, child care, child support, unemployment benefits. So these, the systems in this country that are controlling this money are fragmented. basic income scientists and sympathizers, they suggest that we should unify all those systems into one, because it's cheaper, simpler, and you don't have to control as many people and employ as many people in the government companies. This is the most proposed solution for to say. So we should also optimize public spending. Governments are expensive. Let's make them cheaper. Let's turn every stone, look into every corner to see where the money is. I can assure you, there's enough money for at least a part of that sum in Croatia and in European Union and in all other countries in the world. We just not used to think this way. This is a new radical idea that we should actually optimize how much money the government spends on public services. For example, let me tell you what the French calculated. They said that if they reformed only the social security systems, they could pay out 400 euros tomorrow to every French citizen. So the French have this number, it's 400 euros. We don't know what the number for our country is, but what we need to do is sit down, use the brain power of our economics scientists to calculate this, to see how much we need, how much Europe needs. Okay, tax reform is one other method how we can finance basic income. Don't fret. It doesn't mean that you will pay more taxes. It doesn't have to be this way, because there are taxes meant for governments or financial institutions. For example, Europe is discussing a so-called financial transaction tax at the moment, which proposes to tax all the financial transactions above banks. So, stock market speculations, currency exchanges, this can be taxed, and money can be pooled into a fund for basic income. So, it doesn't have to mean that citizens will pay more taxes. Okay, when I talk to people, there are many fears. They actually call it arguments. I call it fears because it's a new way of thinking, and people are naturally afraid of new things. One of the most voiced fears is actually how we can finance this. I have just answered this to you. I'm going to emphasize three most important fears people have. Oh my God, people will stop working. Who will work? This is actually nonsense. Why? Basic income is basic. It cannot finance your next iPhone, your next vacation, new clothes. It will cover what you need to survive. Everything else you will want to work for to get. So once you get basic income into the hands of people, and when they lose this fear of everyday life, people will start to see how actually beautiful this world is, how much possibilities there are in the world, and they're going to want to use all these wonders that we have today. So the next iPhone will come from working and not from basic income. Also, let me say this, there have been many experiments regarding basic income. In multiple field studies, people actually gave money to people and observed what happened, and all the studies say people work more. The only two groups that work less are the ones that shouldn't be working in the first place. Those were mothers with young children and kids that should be in school, like teenagers, especially in the developing countries, the so-called third world countries. So no, people won't stop working. They say it's unjust that some people work and others profit from someone else's work. So what do we say to this? Let me tell you the following example. Have you got up this morning? Have you thought for a second that you should maybe thank Mr. Nikola Tesla for electricity, for your laptop, for your phone? Because he is the father of the technology of the 21st century. And he did all this for the love of science and not for the love of money. They say he died poor, but I believe he died knowing what he achieved, although he couldn't reap the benefits of his work. So my answer to this is that we are all standing on the shoulders of giants that came before us. And that there isn't a person in this world today who can say that whatever he or she achieved, that he or she did it alone. Take Wikipedia, for example. Who uses Wikipedia daily? Come on, let me see hands. Okay, I know you do. Okay, who contributes to Wikipedia? Who edits Wikipedia? See, no hands. So there are like a few 100 million people who use Wikipedia monthly. But there's only a few tens of thousands of people who actually create the content. So, if this was true, should we like restrict access to everybody who does not contribute? No, this is not how things work. This is not how, for example, open source software works. No, people use other people's work all the time, and the richest billionaires today can actually find at least 1,000 people before whom they can thank for their billions in their pocket. Oh, you dirty communist. This is a comment from our Facebook wall the other day. So the word communism is overloaded, especially in a post-communist country such as Croatia. I don't believe we all talk about the same thing when we say communism. But let me say you the following thing. In communism, they say that the system tried to make everybody be the same, which is so far from what basic income wants to do. Basic income wants to create a floor on which everybody can land if something bad happens. It's not about making people equal. It's about starting from the same floor and going up. And also in communism, rich people were also shunned. They were deemed not part of the system. So money did not have a good reputation. And in today's society, money is a tool. Don't get me wrong. We all need money because in today's society we need it to buy ourselves decent level of civilization. So no, it's not a communist idea. Just like universal healthcare is not a communist idea, and Croatia and also 58 countries in the world have universal healthcare. Almost everybody in this country is covered with a system that is actually part of our constitution. So what we propose for basic income is that it should also become part of our constitution one day. We want the government to guarantee our existence. And it's a humanist idea, not a communist idea. Okay, let me show you what one communist country and what they did the other day.
Swiss citizens are demanding a crucial change in the constitution, pushing for the introduction of a guaranteed income for everyone. Our team teamed up with Rock Media to follow the story of these bit honorees in Bern, where supporters of the basic income idea have gathered at rally.
What we're seeing here in Switzerland is a completely revolutionary outlook towards the social welfare system. What's being proposed by a group of Swiss citizens is a guaranteed minimum income. Now, what that would mean is that every citizen, whether working in whichever job or not at all, would receive a set amount of money. Now, in order to try and illustrate their point that Switzerland is such a wealthy country and it has a mountain of money that can be shared out around all of its citizens, what we're seeing right now happening, just over to my right, is 15 tons of gold coins poured out onto the Parliament Square here. That's 400,000 Swiss francs worth of money. That's around 350,000 euro. Now, this new revolutionary plan, and as I say, has resulted in this outpouring of gold coins, is, well, it's caused some consternation. Is it just free money, or will it result in people not even bothering to work? Now, those behind the scheme say that it will actually encourage people to work and will encourage people to follow their dreams. They say that this will allow people in the country a right to dignity and a right to choose exactly what they want to do, not pressured by the extreme pressures of having to finance their everyday lives. They say that the modern world has created a situation whereby people don't work for what they enjoy. They've worked in order to just pay their bills. They want to change this. Now, when it comes to financing it, well, that's where it gets into the real political wrangling. And if this does get beyond a referendum, that's certainly something that's going to be discussed. It has been put forward that perhaps taxes could be raised. It's also being put forward there could be a financial transaction tax. Of course, Switzerland, one of the major banking centres of the world, if not the major banking centre of the world. Also, a rise in VAT and value-added tax could be brought in, but it's certainly a revolutionary scheme that they're looking forward to putting to Parliament here, and is set to change perhaps even the very way that we concept what work is. Because what this initiative hopes to do is make sure that Switzerland's huge mountains of wealth can actually become the face for all of its citizens.
So, some communist country, right? They want to introduce basic income. Let me repeat from the video, what the Swiss did, they took 8 million Swiss cents and dumped it on the streets in front of the Swiss parliament. This was real money, this wasn't funny money. They actually took out the credit to the bank. I talked to the people in Switzerland. What they were doing was a celebration of a successful people's initiative in Switzerland. They collected 126,000 signatures needed for a national referendum. And in a few years they're going to have a referendum about basic income, whether they want it or not. Just a second. Oh, okay. Just a second, sorry. Okay, we have friends in Switzerland. The sign says Pozdrav Hrvatska or Hello Croatia. The two gentlemen on the picture are Mr. Niko Han from of Croatian origin on the right. He was a part of the initiative that collected the signatures, and on the left is Mr. Daniel Henny, a very important person in the European and Swiss basic income movement, one of the most popular people in the movement, and they are standing in front of this pile of money, in front of 400,000 Swiss francs, that's almost 2 million kuna, and they are encouraging us. They want to send a message. A message is actually related to our European Citizens Initiative, which I am the Croatian coordinator for. If you haven't signed, has anybody signed the initiative already? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, if you're in Croatia, you can visit this URL, temeljnidohodak.hr/potpisi. This is a website we created using all our internet marketing knowledge and website development knowledge to create a highly converting website that converts traffic to signatures. And I can proudly say that Croatia is one of the best, most successful countries in Europe collecting these signatures. If you are not Croatian citizen, you can use the above URL to sign. I want to invite you all to try to see what the European Citizens Initiative actually is. Well, that's it. I hope I have successfully sent a message about what basic income is, that I have inspired you to think, because this is the phase that we're actually in right now. We have to think about this idea, and we have to sign the initiative to say, yes, we want this system to be improved. Thank you.